Tonight on News 5 Live, Ministry of Health calls for calm and says that there are no confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Belize. Tourism stakeholders say the cancellations are up to 35% as travel bans for European tourists are imposed in the region. And Community Disaster Response Team tests out its emergency readiness on the south side. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
The Belize Bank introduces
Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Thursday, March 12th. I am Marlene Cuellar. In this region, Cuba and Trinidad and Tobago are the latest countries to confirm their first cases of the rapidly spreading novel coronavirus, referred to as COVID-19, which has now been declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization. Tonight we can verify that there are no confirmed cases in Belize, and 2 samples are being tested for the virus. Now, due to the gravity of the situation globally, this afternoon Prime Minister Dean Barrow announced a number of measures that will be put in place to combat the disease when it is found. There is the issue of preventative measures in the public health sector, impact on employees and employers in the private sector, as well as the economic ramifications that can arise from shocks to the tourism industry and the private sector, which is the mainstay of the economy. First, a task force and a national oversight committee have been established to be co-chaired with the leader of the opposition and will include civil society to tackle the major health concern.
Cabinet confirmed the establishment of a COVID-19 task force and a COVID-19 National Oversight Committee. Now, I use the word confirmed, or the words confirmed the establishment advisedly yesterday, because, in fact, I had set the wheels in motion for these things to happen since Saturday. That was the day I called various individuals, various leaders, including the leader of the opposition, the head of the Council of Churches, Senator Salas from the Belize National Network of NGOs, and the president of the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I have asked the leader of the opposition, and I did so since Saturday, as I indicated, and he has accepted. I've asked him to co-chair with me the National Oversight Committee. The purpose of this committee is to provide ultimate overall supervision of Belize's efforts to deal with COVID-19. The day-to-day public health response will, of course, be the principal responsibility of the Ministry of Health and the COVID-19 task force. And you will shortly hear extensively from the Director of Health Services in this regard. Accordingly, while the National Oversight Committee, in its efforts at superintendency, will look at everything, it will especially zero in on the economic aspects of the crisis. Thus, at our first meeting scheduled for this coming Monday, we will hear from the Governor of the Central Bank, the Financial Secretary, and the CEO of the Ministry of Economic Development. They, together with SSB, will help the committee to map out the necessary response to deal with the impacts of the crisis on employees, on employers, and on all sectors of the Belize economy. Matters we will be looking at include emergency aid to workers, a possible tax deferral, a supplementary allocation, budgetary allocation, for corona-related outlays, duty-free importation of essential supplies, a moratorium on loan repayments at banks and credit unions, and post-corona stimulus, fiscal stimulus that is, by even more accelerated capital spending, salary advances to public officers, and things of that sort.
A budget for the upcoming financial year was tabled in the House last week, but government is now looking at international partners for funding to deal with the imminent threat of COVID-19. At this point, there is no decision to ban mass gatherings or prohibit travel. But according to the Prime Minister, the government will find ways to source resources given the gravity of the situation.
The original ask from the ministry was for slightly less than $1 million. We understand that is, as it were, the first tranche. Whatever it takes, within obvious limits, government will find the resources. We have already explored the possibility of funding assistance from external sources, and there is a component within a particular project funded by the World Bank, the Climate Resilient Infrastructure Project. We can trigger that immediately for $1 million US. There is also a facility that the World Bank has generally chartered. You don't access that until you have your first case, and even then, the concentration is on the poorest of the poor countries, not people that have, not countries that have graduated beyond a certain point. But while we clearly are going to take all the help we can possibly get, while we're actively going to seek out that help, I am here to reiterate that locally, government will find the resources needed to properly equip the Ministry of Health team and to do whatever is necessary.
There seemed to be a timeline of mass gathering events ahead of us, which would include Easter and the National Agriculture and Trade Show, and if we're forecasting a bit further, the general elections. Should there be an outbreak of this particular virus in Belize during the next few months, what do we do in terms of addressing these particular gatherings?
Well, as I said, and this was a position I came to after the discussion in Cabinet, from now I believe we ought to be discouraging mass gathering events, but we're not imposing any ban. I'm sure you all listened very carefully to the Director of Health Services. While ultimately it is a political decision, if you're going to be guided by the approach the good doctor as an expert has set out, the time has not yet come for us to, in fact, officially begin imposing bans. I understood the doctor to be talking about when you have one case, when you have community cases, a cluster in a particular community, when you have a wider spread. So there are 3 stages, and it seems to me that we're only in the preliminary stage.
As we said, there are no confirmed cases locally, but the Ministry of Health has been consistently saying it is only a matter of time. But unlike other countries, the Prime Minister says there's no decision on travel bans, large gatherings, or the closure of schools that will be imposed. These will come later as the situation continues to evolve. But the government is discouraging non-essential traveling and encouraging social distancing.
Decisions will have to be taken on the following: whether or not to continue to allow cruise ships to come, whether or not to officially disallow large gatherings, whether or not to close schools, whether or not to ban air travel, whether or not to restrict freedom of entry at our land borders. These are not easy decisions to make, given the obvious and astronomical impact they would have on us and on the economy, especially, of course, tourism. But nothing is more important than preserving the health of our people. Nothing is more important than saving Belizean lives. I did not want to announce any such decision today without putting our country, as well as those that visit and service Belize, on notice. But I advise now that immediately after this press conference, I will be meeting again with the health team and speaking to the leader of the opposition. I will, of course, also be talking to tourism and business stakeholders. Shortly thereafter, I would expect to announce when any or all of the cited measures would go into effect. At a time such as now, government is called upon to be the nation's guardian, and each of us is called upon to be the other's keeper. It is together, therefore, that we face this crisis. It is together that we will address this crisis, and it is together that we will overcome this crisis.
The Ministry of Health is propping up its equipment as it prepares for COVID-19. The ministry is in the process of procuring 6 new ventilators to add to its existing numbers across the country. While those machines are expected to arrive from the United States within a week, sourcing and purchasing another 6 will have to be done elsewhere. In respect of trained personnel to administer the ventilators, Minister of Health Pablo Marin has been in contact with the Cuban ambassador Lisette Perez to secure a team of Cuban doctors who are trained in the use of ventilators.
They have installed 1 ventilator already. They have done the connections on the job. They have 4 ventilators for that unit. They have 6 in their routine ICU. We are in terms of getting an initial procurement of 6. but we have gotten a budget for another 6, so it's 12 ventilators more than the 10 that Carl Houston already has.
Hard to source right now, would you concede? It's not something you
Yeah,
can buy on Amazon.
I think we have gotten the assurance that the 6 that we had already started the process of, can get here in 1 week. So the other 6 will have to source outside of the U.S. Not all the ventilators would go to Carl Houston. You also will know that routinely we don't ventilate patients at the regional hospitals. What I think we have decided as a team and in tandem with Carl Houston is that this is the opportunity to now set up ventilators at the regional hospitals, Belmopan, Dangriga, and Orange Walk.
And the personnel?
Again, depends on the school where you came from. We had a discussion this morning. For example, I trained in Mexico. As an internist, you are trained in, I might have to go and brush up on those skills because COVID-19 has unbrushed those skills, if you will. But if it depends on the school, as an internist, you should be able to handle ventilators. If not, then they will have to come for training to Carl Houston, and I think we will have the commitment in that regard.
Yes, just to follow up that, this morning I had a meeting with the ambassador from Cuba, and we're looking at all the specialists that are in country, and by this evening she should be giving us exactly which doctors can do and help us in this case.
Prior to the Prime Minister's press conference, there was a scare at a clinic in the south side of Belize City. A person showing respiratory complications had gone in for a checkup that triggered an alarm among those persons awaiting treatment and resulted in the closure of the facility. News 5's Dwayne Moody reports.
News spread like wildfire this morning that a health facility in Belize City was in chaos after there was at least one person exhibiting respiratory complications, a symptom of the novel coronavirus. By the time we got to the Belize Integral Health Center at the corner of Curaçao and Gibnut Streets, the facility had been closed and services discontinued until Friday. Residents say that there were suspicious activities at the center, after which an ambulance arrived and transported at least one person to the KHMH, where an isolation unit has been set up.
I saw little movements this morning, but I didn't know what it was. So we just kept inside and mind my own business. But we really didn't know what was going on.
They have ambulance where rush people to the KHMH, and kind of to make people live around the areas and coronavirus are a very serious thing we hear about from China and so forth. I mean, for we Belizeans, we need to take precautions of these things because these things are very serious, But when it comes to the hospital itself, I mean, they should have known better and they should have do better and know that to a fact that this thing is very dangerous. And we as Belizeans, we need to get that thing early because in a day, we know that that thing is an airborne thing and we need to deal with it.
The health center is just across the street from residential properties, home to a number of children and older persons. The elderly, as well as persons with chronic conditions, are more susceptible to severe cases of COVID-19. The medical practitioners, as well as security and police officers stationed in the area, were wearing masks and gloves. This raised alarmed bells in the neighborhood.
That is a concern because a lot of kids live in this area and the resident is really close to the hospital, right in front of them, across from them, behind them. All around the hospital people live, so that is a concern to us as a resident in this area.
You do realize that they've closed their doors for today? They don't open for the rest of the day?
I didn't even know that.
The staff at the medical center then locked themselves inside, and as persons arrived for their appointments, they realized that the center was closed. But how prepared are residents for what the Ministry of Health says is inevitable to end up in Belize?
I think we're still not protected because we should have known, they should have told us something at least.
How prepared are you, your family, for, because the government is saying that it's not if, it's when it's going to get here. How concerned are you about that?
I'm really concerned because I heard the coronavirus is deadly. So we have to try to protect ourselves in any kind of way. So they should have told us what is going on over there as the residents, as we the residents who live right across from them and around them.
They say wash your hands with water, with soap and water, all of that.
All of that.
Have you been teaching your children, your grandchildren?
Yes, I have. Every day. Every day. I tell them to wash their hands. Every minute I tell them wash their hand. Anything you touch, go wash your hand.
We just go by rumors, garlic and water, we're not so sure. We're not so sure about these things. We can't 100% sure. So, end of the day, I don't know if the facility is sure or 100% what they do. But otherwise than that, I don't know. I don't know. We need to deal with it though.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
At the Prime Minister's press conference, Director of Health Services Dr. Marvin Manzanero confirmed that the patient's test returned negative for COVID-19. There's much more news after the break, so stay tuned. The coronavirus is training health systems all over the world. The Ministry of Health here says it's acquiring more ventilators as part of its preparedness plans to tackle the COVID-19. As you know, many families live in congested houses and will not be able to isolate at home. What about the isolation units where persons will have to be placed in case they are affected? The ministry is reaching out to stakeholders to source the units.
We understand that there will be areas where, or people who can self-isolate that have 10, 15, 20 people. For those are the isolation units that we are trying to identify through NEMO, and I think we already have a list, or we were promised we were going to have a list that will be activated by the end of today. And again, that's where you bring all your other stakeholders, because it could be that most of these people don't really need a healthcare person alongside them. So you need the other NEMO stakeholders to come on board and help us in that isolation process to make sure it really happens.
Will there be in that handbook 3B for the self-isolation? Because if I'm going to self-isolate myself from work, I can't just phone the boss and say I'm self-isolating. You still need a note from a doctor, so you still have to come in contact with the formal system.
I don't have the number of persons since January that we have been doing that. Remember, students who came back from China, they were in self-isolation for 14 days, and you would have a healthcare worker go and look for them. But it's a vast amount of people that we were following.
Part of the process involves testing for the virus. The Ministry of Health is adopting international standards. So far, all samples have returned negative.
The first test you are going to run is the panel of the normal viruses you have. If you have a strong suspicion, which is taken up by the team, it's not a single decision taken, then you will run the COVID-19 test. And I think the 7 samples we drew on Monday, I know even the British citizen who came out negative, we said still run a COVID-19 test. So it's not, we are not doing routine screening for COVID-19. It's not that people who have the flu-like symptoms just show up and demand a COVID-19 test. It doesn't work like that. There's a process flow that's determined by the lab personnel. There's a clearly articulated chart based on international guidelines, based on an international definition, and that's how the screening process is going to be. So even if, and the person who sends in the sample also needs to write down the entire epidemiological history, so that whoever is doing the lab sample can do the necessary screening test for COVID-19. I think it's 13 samples that we have done. All of them are negative, but that doesn't mean that they didn't come out positive for other viruses, because that is a screening process that we will follow.
On the crime blotter, there was a home invasion on Wednesday night in the Jane Usher Boulevard area of Belize City. Donald Enriquez Nunez Garcia was inside his house when a man entered and attacked him. Garcia received multiple stab wounds to the body and was left for dead as his common-law wife slept in the room. His attacker then escaped through the front door. Garcia was later discovered by his common-law wife, who rushed him to the Belize Medical Associates, where he remains in a stable condition. Senior Superintendent Alberto Romero gave the preliminary details on the crime, but says that investigators are ruling out robbery as a possible motive.
Around 7:50 p.m., police visited the Belize Medical Associates, where they found Donald Garcia, 48 years, with stab wounds to the body. Investigation revealed that Donald Garcia was at an address on Jane Usher Boulevard, and the door of his house was open when a dark-skinned male person entered the house and inflicted the stab wounds to him. He alerted his wife to the incident, and she then took him to the Belize Medical Associates for treatment. He is there in a stable condition. We're seeking one suspect in regards to this investigation.
Does he have any ideas as to who his attacker might have been, sir?
Not at this time. He was there and the person entered and inflicted stab on him.
Was there any robbery element, or was it the person?
There was nothing was stolen from him.
Sir, any idea why he may have been attacked?
Not at this time.
Senior Superintendent Alberto Romero also gave an update on the investigation into the murder of Carolyn Arnold. The body of the elderly woman was discovered semi-nude on a dirt road off mile 13 on the Philip Golson Highway. There has been much speculation as to what motivated the killing and police say they are following all leads. There are also several persons in custody for questioning.
The investigation is exploring every lead that we get. Yes, that is a part of the investigation we're following up upon. At this time, several persons were detained and are being interviewed in regards to this investigation, but at this time, no one has been arrested and charged.
Sir, have you received any report that she may have had perhaps $900 on her that night?
Again, the investigators are following up on every information we get. Not reveal every detail of how it is.
Sir, are you able to see? It's a very disturbing crime that this elderly woman was found partially nude. Is there any indication in the investigation as to what it was or what reason it was that she was disrobed
No, we do not have any information to indicate how the details were found. Again, the investigation is still ongoing, and as it goes along, we are endeavoring our best to try and solve this crime. A post-mortem examination is scheduled for today.
Okay.
The doctor will submit his findings after the post-mortem.
Sir, so right now you're not able to say why she was killed?
We are unable to say why.
Meanwhile, the Belize Family Life Association is condemning the circulation on social media of a photograph of the semi-nude body of Arnold. The BFLA states that it amounts to a huge violation of her human rights, saying that, quote, the publication of nude or partially nude photos of a deceased woman or any picture that seeks to demean, violate, disrespect, or deny a woman or girl of the dignity owed to her in life and death is an act of violence, gender-based violence, and violates her rights, unquote. After the break, the Belize Hotel Association reports a significant increase in cancellations.
COVID-19.
One of the most asked questions is how to protect yourself against the spread of COVID-19. One of the highly recommended suggestions from doctors is a common sense approach. Epidemiologist Dr. Russell Manzanera emphasizes the need for hygienic practices such as the frequent washing of hands. The measures, he says, are similar to those taken when addressing the influenza virus.
Any measures that are taken for influenza, this is the same measures that we are to apply regardless in the public. This is what we've been stressing from the very beginning. And I believe in our team and discussions we've had with the regions and health regions is that the essential of hand washing, the cough etiquette, your hands basically are the source of many infections. It's not only for the respiratory illnesses, but also goes further to any gastro and further infections that might allude to the hand hygiene. So I guess that's what we're trying to push forward. I mean, this in itself, as DHS has mentioned, is something that we're not to be alarmed, but this is something that on our own, we're supposed to take our own measures, our own responsibilities. Even from the very start, when we started channeling all that information on prevention, what it is to do your proper hand washing. I mean, it's not only washing your hands, but there's a method how you should properly hand wash. The use of soaps. I know individuals right now are just trying to scramble for all the hand sanitizers. You can't get basically no hand sanitizer right now. But what we're trying to enforce is the adequate hand washing. If at schools we can implement those kind of messages, even with our children, I mean, this is the fact. I mean, the children are the ones that would take back that information even back to the home.
Even as the government officially announced today that there's still no confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Belize, the virus is already having and will continue to have a major impact on the tourism industry and by extension the economy. In the region, there have been several cruise ship cancellations and tourists have been postponing their holidays. Here, the industry is facing cancellations of hotel and resort reservations across the length and breadth of the country. Travel bans in the region on European travelers have translated into 35% in cancellations so far. News 5 spoke to the president of the Belize Hotel Association, Ted Tejada, who says that the impact of the virus has had on the overnight sector is massive, even though there are no confirmed cases as yet in Belize.
We have been monitoring this since it broke in January. Actually, it did not hit Belize until last week. Last week, Friday, is when the country started to receive cancellations. As of Friday, there was substantial amount of rooms being canceled throughout the industry. As of today, as you heard the Prime Minister mention earlier, yesterday the number was at 26% in cancellation. Up to today, the number is already at 35%. And it is not that these guests are not trying to come to Belize. Now, Guatemala has closed its border as of today for Iberia, which is the airline that comes directly from Spain directly to Guatemala. As of Monday, El Salvador had closed its border for European travelers. So what does that pose? Most of our European travelers that come in through the western border are no longer able to arrive in the country because that border has been shut due to Guatemala and El Salvador and Costa Rica as well. So all our Spaniards, Italians, French, none of them can access the country through that medium. Now the United States has also closed its border for most of the European travel. So none of the Europeans that are coming in through Miami, Houston, Dallas can access the country. So we're looking at the European market at this moment no longer being able to access Belize. The primary goal is of our employees to make sure that all our employees are safe, all our Belizeans are safe, but the economic crunch that this coronavirus will have on the economy of the country of Belize, it will be massive.
In terms of the American market, tourists are still traveling to Belize, but Tejada says that many have postponed their trip until after August. From the hotels to the tour guides, all sectors in tourism are feeling the impact of COVID-19. The executive director of the Belize Tourism Industry Association says that its members have also been experiencing cancellations, primarily as it relates to university or student groups and religious missions who've been advised not to travel out of their respective country.
The main concern for the stakeholders, specifically the hotels, resorts, tour operators, tour guides, it trickles down to everyone down the value chain, is that their economic impact. They recognize the importance of protecting their health and their well-being, but you cannot disregard the level of uncertainty, which is going to lead to mass reduction of tourism over there. The cancellations are for March, are for April. I think some of them are leading even into May, because there's the uncertainty factor. They don't know what's going on. There's no vaccine on this problem at this time right now. So that's where we are in terms of the impact, the immediate impact.
In 2019, during the dengue epidemic in Belize, thousands of persons were affected and there was a sharp increase in the amount of sickness benefit claims between January and July. Payouts were made of over $49,000, which is $43,000 more than the same period in 2018. The then CEO of the Social Security Board confirmed that the staggering figures represent only payouts for dengue. So with the inevitability of COVID-19, Chairman of the SSB Investment Committee, Doug Singh, told News 5 that the SSB is taking a proactive approach to the potential crisis by investing over $200,000 to purchase mobile respirators. Here's how he explains it.
We've been engaging with the Ministry of Health and other stakeholders in the industry. In fact, the management team from SSB has met with Dr. Manzaneros, plural, along with the NHI director, etc., just to try to put in place what SSB can do. To be proactive, meaning to help in a preventative and a proactive kind of measures. This was important for us to do because 2 years ago, when there was a pink eye epidemic, just the claims from the pink eye epidemic from SSB funds was in excess of $1 million. That doesn't say much for the loss of revenues that employers may have experienced as a result of employees being out. But we realize at SSB that if we don't put the resources now in the preventative part of it, we'll end up spending a lot of money in benefits. And of course, that can stretch the fund or strain the fund to a great extent. So SSB approached the ministry and asked what are ways that we could assist in ensuring that the ministry is prepared. And the things that they asked us for assistance with were respirators and mobile portable respirators and x-ray machines, and in the education campaign. So Social Security has contributed or is contributing over $200,000 to assist with I think it's 7 or 8 or so or 9 portable respirators. As you're aware, some of the most vulnerable people under coronavirus or COVID-19 infection are the elderly, and they're the ones that suffer tremendously from breathing problems.
Still on the new coronavirus, the leader of the opposition, John Briceño, confirmed via a release this evening that he has accepted in good faith the invitation by the Prime Minister to co-chair the high-level working group on COVID-19. The release says that Belize is facing a national crisis, not just in health, but in the economy and in the social sector. Briceño says he stands ready to work and act in the best interest of the Belizean people. As such, he looks forward to a constructive process in which his party's ideas, plans, and proposals will be considered, and he reserves the right to raise issue with any instance where the party's interests are not duly served. When we come back, CMO tests its preparedness in case of an emergency. Did they pass the test? The Belize Red Cross and the City Emergency Management Organization conducted 3 disaster simulations today in Belize City. The exercises are to complement 2 months of training where 30 residents did a series of sessions to learn about disaster preparedness and response. Today, that project wrapped up when they tested their knowledge to demonstrate their capacity to respond in times of emergencies. News 5 was on the scene to see how well the Community Disaster Response Team activated their emergency plan in their community. Here's the story with Andrea Polanco.
A fire broke out at a house across from the Cumberbatch Field in Belize City. Several persons are trapped. The authorities are not yet on the scene, so the residents are responding to the cries of help. Firefighters arrived to put out the blaze and they're assisted by first responders. These are people who live in the area. They are now evacuating the persons inside, some of whom are injured.
Please go beyond the line, you're stepping too close.
These responders are residents who live in Lake Independence, Collet, and Port Loyola divisions in Belize City. They are now activating their plans in time of an emergency.
Definitely we need them because, like I said, they are the community disaster response team. They are the first to respond. They are the first responders. So whatever happened, fire, hurricane, a collapsed building or something, they are the first one who will be called on. And like I was informing them, remember they represent the community. It's their community they're looking after.
The responders have trained in emergency preparedness and response. They've completed 2 months of training through a project with the Belize Red Cross.
They are being trained in community disaster preparedness and response in different areas, including damage and needs assessment, shelter management, psychosocial first aid, children and adolescents in disaster, violence and crime prevention.
So the responders are now putting their knowledge to test in this simulation. CMO and the Belize Red Cross are leading the community capacity building project.
Today we will be looking at how well they can respond in case of an emergency, maybe in drowning, in an accident scene.
What I want to see is how they, the flow, and how they work well along together, and to see if everything flows well and if they understand what they are doing. And from that, we could strengthen them in areas that we see that they fail.
And as they conclude their rescue efforts on land, the first responders are called out to sea. There's been a boat incident that has left several persons stranded at sea. The responders are now working together to bring those persons safely to land. Tanisha Vernon and Chelsea Colon are 2 of the first responders. They see the benefits of acquiring new skills and information. They say that it empowers them, their households, and their communities.
I had no knowledge about safety, about disaster, or whatever the case might be, and I was invited to be a part of the CDRT training coordinated from the Belize Red Cross. And there's a lot of things that I thought that I knew about my community and about my country in general, So being a part of the CDRT has broadened my understanding about certain things, how to respond in event, how to react, and who to contact and so forth. The fire safety, I was afraid of fire, so I overcame that phobia about how to extinguish the fire, how to respond, and how to go and assess damages and so forth, and a lot of things like I mentioned that I never knew about.
For the simulation, I was in the search and rescue team. Basically, we just go out, search and rescue the people who need rescue, and then we just take them out so that the first aid can do their thing on the patient.
What was this experience like for you? Was it frightening? Was it scary? Was it new?
I had training for it. We at Cayo at the bazaar, so it was not really new to me because I already did it there. So it was fun, a nice experience as well.
All right. So why did you decide that you wanted to be a part of this as a member of the Collet community?
So that I can gain experience at least, because where I live, many disasters happen and over there it get flooded. So for this, to me, it's a big gain, so that when I go out there, I will know what to do. I could get people, make them help me. I could rescue them out, give them information. Yeah.
So the experience has been very valuable for you and your community.
Yes.
Today, the responders are being assessed by a team on the ground. This evaluation will help to find out the strengths and weaknesses, which will help to determine future training opportunities. Thomas Rivas is one of the evaluators.
We are just here to do the evaluation of all the extraction and also the packaging of patients that make sure they have it right, protecting the patients and also doing the extraction without getting the patient additional injury from what they have already received.
How did this team perform? If you had to give them a grade, A, B, C, how did they perform today?
It's actually the first scenarios they ever had since the training. Some of them were trained a couple months ago. So giving them from 1 to 5, I will definitely give them a maybe 3, 3.5, because it's the first time they're doing it as a reality with all the attraction and everything, simulation and everything. So it shows them how the stressful part of it, how to deal with it, working with time, working with the weather.
The boat collision, how did that one go?
It was one of them. I think it was a challenge one within the two, because they did with us swift water rescue. This is not a swift water, this is an open water rescue. So the distance working with the wind, current and everything, it was kind of difficult for them, and they're not having all the facilitated things that they needed.
Based on what you've seen here, you believe that this group needs some additional training to be able to respond and prepare for a disaster should that happen in this area?
Definitely, because one of the, like I think I was telling them, one of the things they need to do is work with the community. Remember, it's a community disaster response team. So you have to involve the community there. People standing there, I show them that you can ask them for help, even though you are the one who is specialized or have the training, so you are the one who is dictating what is to happen, so you can ask for additional help on the side.
The third simulation was a road traffic accident, which wrapped up the field exercises. Following today's simulation, the community first responders will be certified and equipped with tools and equipment to use in the event of an emergency in their communities. They will also become members of the CIMO team and will receive more training in emergency preparedness and response. Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
2 men have been arrested and charged in connection with an attempted kidnapping. Police say that one of the assailants, Luis Urbina, has a long charge sheet of similar charges. Urbina had also escaped from police custody but was recaptured. Senior Superintendent Alberto Romero shares the details.
Police have since arrested and charged Dandy Urbina and Luis Urbina, indicted for the crime of attempted kidnapping, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and threat of death. Luis Urbina was additionally charged for the crime of escape, as he had escaped from the police station and thereafter recaptured.
Sir, Urbina, we understand, has a long charge sheet of similar charges?
That is correct.
So at this time he is in prison. Where is he?
Yes, they were both remanded to prison.
Police have arrested and charged 3 men in connection to a burglary that happened at number 60 Barrack Road on Sunday. Police say that businessman Azim Obadul was sleeping at around 2:30 that morning when he was awoken by 2 armed men. The thieves took an undisclosed amount of money, an assortment of jewelry, and electrical items.
Reference an aggravated burglary report made by Obedul Islam on the 7th of March 2020. Police have since arrested and charged Aaron Flowers, Andres Emilio, and Philip Guzman jointly for the crime of aggravated burglary. This is after an investigation was conducted and these persons were detained and now have been charged.
Sir, was anything recovered from that incident?
Nothing was recovered.
Coming up after the break, a sports summit is held to encourage women in sports on the occasion of International Month of Women.
Discover Central TV and Internet.
All over, women face challenges in their professional life, and the field of sports is no exception. Since Wednesday, a summit commenced in Belize City to promote equality for girls and women involved in sports. According to organizers, there is a decline in the number of women engaged in sporting activities, so the event is a springboard to advocate for better conditions and equal opportunities for the female gender. Here's News 5's Dwayne Moody with this report.
The first of its kind summit to advocate for equity in sports in Belize is taking place in Belize City at the Mexico Sports Center and the Marion Jones Sporting Complex. Female and male athletes in various disciplines have gathered to discuss what can be done to motivate the inclusion of young girls and women athletes in sports. It has been an uphill battle as the number of active female athletes continues to dwindle for various reasons.
We've been working with partners from various organizations in Belize since 2014, and we've been using, in general, sport as a tool for social change. And throughout the years that we've been working with different organizations, we've learned that gender equity is a very big issue in your country, as it also is in our country. And so we've organized this summit to bring together different organizations who feel strongly about fostering more equity for women and girls in sport, but then also in life, in school, in their activities, in their families.
The challenges include the lack of opportunities for girls wanting to play sports, as well as the inability of women and girls to stand up without being victimized. Facilitator Edith Martinez says that the lack of support from people in power has had an adverse effect on sports in Belize, specifically for women.
I'm growing up playing basketball. Yes, we had a team, but we had no sponsors. We had a team. Yes, we had coaches, but you barely had people wanted to support a female league. So I think the community on a whole, they didn't really support the female in sports. For sure, I've seen changes. I cannot speak of female playing basketball, but I've seen a lot of changes in the women football and the volleyball and the softball. Oh yes, changes have been made. I think we need to come together and create policies that will benefit both males and females. Right now we're fighting for equality and equity, and if the guys could have it, the girls can do it too.
In recent times, there have been accomplishments by female athletes in volleyball and track and field. The once popular female softball league has become almost non-existent. As to the number of female cyclists, that number is also on the decline. Deputy National Sports Coordinator Kaya Katus, a cross-country cycling champion, says that it is about giving young women an opportunity to become an athlete and to be compensated, just as the male athletes in football and basketball leagues.
Other sports don't include female any at all. In basketball, there's no female league in Belize. In cycling, the numbers have dwindled almost to nothing. In football, the females don't get half as much, as what the males are getting. And in a discussion yesterday, we also discussed that at the semi-pro level in football and basketball, guys are being paid to play ball, which would be almost equivalent to a salary. Females in no sport are being paid to play in Belize. Nothing is being done from the top, from government come right down to individuals. You often see me on TV doing interviews, advocating for women and juniors in cycling, and you could turn the cameras around and around, and I'm the only person there giving an interview, and it would seem like I'm the only one who has a problem. People are afraid to talk, people are afraid to speak out, and one of the reasons are because of victimization. The way our country is set up, it's just how it is. But these are the steps that needs to be taken to start getting things done. I mean, we have a group of like-minded females here and some males from different sporting organizations, from different sporting backgrounds that have the same goal. And I think from this, we will form a coalition, try to put policies in place and get the ball moving on the right track as opposed to just talking without action.
Dr. Jen Jacobs says that being involved in sports from a young age has far-reaching impact on an individual's life skills.
You can build life skills through sport, and so it's not about developing a strong jump shot on the basketball court or a good kick during football. It's about the empowerment that you can gain through sport, and so the research shows that you can gain important life skills such as assigning or taking responsibility for your own actions, being able to show respect for people from different cultures. A big one is learning how to put effort into everything that you do, and so it's not always about achievement and winning, but it's about putting in effort and trying. And if you learn to develop that type of pattern early on, we've seen that that can last throughout life and help you be successful in your prospective careers and then make your family stronger, etc.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Up next, Healthy Living looks at a high school in the city as it prepares for Cyber School Day in case of corona.
With over 100 years of service excellence,
with a global perspective.
The World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic on Wednesday, acknowledging that the disease is spreading across the globe. You saw earlier in the newscast the Prime Minister outlining the country's preparation for any eventual outbreak. The key message continues to be that preparedness is vital. There are no confirmed cases in Belize, and there is no advice on school closures defined as yet. But one school in Belize City took the initiative to put their own preparedness plans in place and tested them today. Tonight's Healthy Living takes us to St. Catherine Academy to find out more about their test run of a Cyber School Day. It's Thursday at 1 p.m. and the bell rings for the start of the afternoon sessions here at St. Catherine Academy in Belize City. The students and teachers start filing back into their classrooms. But all the first and second form classes look like this. So where are the students? They're not behind their desks. They're at home, logged into today's classes using their electronic devices.
Today, SCA has its first Cyber Day. It's a stay school at home day, and what it means is the students should be in class but from home.
Good afternoon, ladies.
So our teachers are here. They're teaching from the classrooms. We ask them, still go to the classrooms, engage your class, prepare, have a lesson as if your students were in class, except that they are wherever they are and you are here.
The exercise is part of the school's preparation if there is a COVID-19 outbreak in the country that requires school closures or limits the mobility of students.
We realize that if we have to close the schools, then will we be ready to do the learning from home? And so we decided, our teachers very proactive, our team of heads of department said, let us try it, let us test it and see if it will work. And for first and second form, it was easy because we have the Digi platform, we have Microsoft Teams, the teachers have been using it. And so we realized all our students, so just about 6, I believe, did not have internet at home, but they could find somewhere where they could access internet during the day. And so they're all able to access the learning today.
We couldn't talk to students who participated as they were home. The teachers were on campus and very excited about today's test run. Science teacher Orlando Broomfield was delivering an intro to physics lesson to second form students.
Luckily, SCA is one of the schools that will have this option.
Yeah.
It's awesome. The students don't have to be here. We teachers too don't have to be here. We don't have behavioral problems, right? Much more resources for them to go to if they can't think of answers on their feet. And I think they like it because no one has complained yet.
It was wonderful having, my girls at home, and some of them were actually in their pajamas, and they were so excited, especially like we went through like sharing screen and Teams and stuff like that. We had presentations going on.
Okay.
So I had like majority of my students presenting online like that.
My main concern was to ensure that I have all of my girls' attention, because in the classroom, that's already something that we need to be very vigilant, not have them gazing out. I had my list with me, and the moment I called their names, here, miss, and they were immediately giving me my answers, And I do think probably they had extra information that they were giving me the answers I wanted and more.
How do you know they're not Googling the information on
Which
the
I think would have worked in a positive way because they're finding relevant information towards my lesson.
Limitations would be students thinking that they can trick the teacher and don't have to be in class. They don't know we're monitoring that. If the student has problem with their data,
Okay.
if there is disruption at home, and which is why we ask our teachers come to school, because from home you might be tempted to do multitask, be doing something else. Yeah. And same thing may apply to the students.
Is it your hope that it doesn't get to the point where schools have to close?
Well, of course, as it is, we're looking at our seniors and we have exempted them from this because they have such a short time ahead of them. We don't know if it will affect CXC exam.
There's no definitive plan for the closing of schools when and if there's a confirmed case in Belize. But it is a new virus, and we're still learning about how it affects children. While people of any age can be infected, so far there are relatively few cases of the disease reported among children. Currently, the advice from the Ministry of Health is to focus on hygiene and reducing transmission.
In regards to schools and students, we are making recommendations and we're advising we're advising the social distancing. Any big crowds, we're trying to minimize those events, sporting events, large assemblies, just to reduce the spread of germs. We support the child's learning. If they're feeling unwell, showing symptoms of flu, it's recommended that they stay at home and recover, and that way not spread the germs to other children. And we emphasize the hand washing and proper hygiene.
According to Principal Tillett, proper hand washing is the first phase of their preparedness plan.
We have our science department, for example. They will be teaching the students how to wash their hands properly. So we have 8 sinks in the science lab, and the kids will go there and they will learn how to wash, scrub under the nails, back of the hands, the thumb, etc., as recommended by the World Health Organization.
Today's test run will be followed by surveys with the students, parents, and teachers. Next week, the rest of the schools, except for the seniors, will test run another cyber school day.
What grade would you give this experience today?
Today, definitely 100%.
And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at News 5, good night.